On an unusually serene autumn evening along the quiet byways of Brooksville, a small but bustling town on the edge of a sprawling American metropolis, Serena Wallace, the respected director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation's regional branch, found herself caught in a maelstrom of injustice. The day had been long and punctuated by the small victories and daily challenges that come with protecting a nation, yet Serena had longed for nothing more than a warm homecoming, a sumptuous dinner, the soft murmur of her favorite jazz record in the background, and a well-worn novel waiting patiently on her coffee table. Little did she know, that tranquil journey home would soon unravel into an ordeal that tested not only her unyielding resolve but also the very foundations of a system that promised fairness yet often delivered prejudice. Before diving deeper into this story, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know where you're watching from, and if stories like this resonate with you, consider subscribing to my channel. Tomorrow, I have another special story waiting for you. Serena's sleek, midnight black SUV glided down a stretch of road lined with ancient oaks, their fiery autumn leaves carpeting the shoulders in a kaleidoscope of reds and golds. The scent of crisp air mingled with the distant aroma of apple pie from a nearby diner, a nostalgic reminder of simpler times and the enduring spirit of American resilience. As she eased into the slow, rhythmic hum of the road, her mind wandered to memories of her youth. Growing up in a working-class neighborhood in the heartland of America, she had seen both the promise and pitfalls of the American dream. It was those early experiences, marked by moments of discrimination and small rebellions against an indifferent society, that had fueled her determination to rise above adversity and champion justice for all. That reflective peace was abruptly shattered by the flashing dual-colored lights in her rear-view mirror. The glaring red and blue beams danced across the polished hood of her vehicle, forcing Serena's eyes to squint as a blaring siren cut through the gentle evening sounds. A sardonic smirk briefly flickered across her face, not out of amusement, but as an acknowledgement of the absurdity of a situation that all too often reeked of baseless authority. She knew in her heart and experience that sometimes the very enforcers of the law could be the ones perpetuating its abuse. Without hesitation, Serena gently guided her car to the roadside and brought it to a measured stop. She flicked on her headlights, a reflex instilled in her not out of fear but as a methodical precaution learned from years of navigating environments where appearances could be deceptive. Moments later, a tall, pale man in a crisp uniform approached her vehicle. His gait was brisk, his posture stiff, a portrait of authority forged in the belief of unquestioned power. This was Officer Elliot Ford, a man whose very presence exuded the kind of rigid discipline that, on this particular night, would soon betray a darker side. "Good evening, ma'am," Officer Elliot said as he rapped firmly on the driver's side window. His tone was cool, almost clinical, yet edged with a hint of suspicion. Serena slowly lowered her window, meeting his gaze with eyes as calm and steady as tempered steel. "Good evening, officer. How may I assist you?" Serena's voice resonated with a blend of courtesy and quiet determination. There was no trace of fear, only the resolve of someone who had weathered many storms, both literal and metaphorical. "License and registration, please," Officer Elliot replied curtly. His eyes narrowed ever so slightly, scrutinizing Serena as if he were trying to decipher an enigma that she herself could not possibly be. Serena reached slowly into her leather glove compartment, retrieving her documents with a measured grace. "I trust you'll understand that I haven't committed any violation tonight," she said, her tone gently challenging. "I'm well within my rights and in full compliance with the law." For a heartbeat, silence reigned. Then, with a dismissive shrug, Officer Elliot responded, "You look suspicious." "Just routine procedure, ma'am. I need to ensure everything is in order." His words dripped with condescension, as if her very presence was an affront to the strict order he was sworn to uphold. Serena's eyes flickered with restrained indignation. Suspicious? I'm afraid that doesn't constitute a valid reason for this stop, officer, she replied, her voice a blend of cool professionalism and quiet challenge. I respect the law, but I also expect the law to respect my rights. A tension thicker than the autumn fog began to coil around the SUV. The distant hum of passing vehicles seemed to underscore the gravity of the moment, a moment that was swiftly spiraling beyond a mere traffic stop. Officer Elliot's demeanor grew increasingly agitated as he leaned in closer, his flashlight cutting a harsh beam through the vehicle's interior. Are you carrying any contraband, ma'am? Any drugs or weapons? He barked, his tone betraying a simmering impatience. People like you never know what secrets you might be hiding. Serena's heart clenched at the insinuation, yet her expression remained stoic. The words were not just an accusation, they were a relic of a past where her very existence had been deemed suspicious by default. I assure you, officer, she said, her voice steady yet imbued with an undercurrent of sorrow born from years of being unjustly profiled, I'm not carrying anything illegal. I abide by the law, and I expect that the law applies to everyone equally. The situation escalated as Officer Elliot's hand instinctively drifted towards the holster at his side. Don't get smart with me, lady. I'm just doing my job. You'll show me your documents, and that, he hissed, the command laced with a threat that reverberated in the crisp night air. Serena's mind raced back to long-forgotten days of indignity and struggle, each memory fueling a resolute defiance that would not be subdued by intimidation. With deliberate slowness, Serena held her documents a moment longer before stating, Officer, I am recording this encounter. Every move, every word. Her hand gestured towards a discreetly mounted phone on the dashboard, a silent sentinel of truth in an era where evidence was often the only safeguard against arbitrary power. Officer Elliot's eyes flared with a mixture of irritation and incredulity. Do you think a camera can do anything when you're in charge? He sneered. His grip on his service weapon tightened perceptibly, and the beam of his flashlight became even more menacing as it danced over Serena's face. Now, get out of the car. I'm ordering you step out, immediately. Serena's pulse quickened, but her exterior remained calm. Officer, I will not exit this vehicle without a legitimate cause, she responded, her tone both polite and unyielding. I'm a law-abiding citizen, and I expect that you abide by the law as well. The standoff between authority and dignity had reached a critical juncture. As if to assert his dominance, Officer Elliot took a step closer, his voice escalating into a mixture of menace and authority. This isn't a negotiation. Either you comply, or I'll be forced to take further measures, he declared, the words heavy with unspoken threats. At that exact moment, as if drawn by the gravity of the unfolding drama, a siren's wail pierced the night once more. From the darkness emerged a patrol car, its lights a swirl of urgency. Out stepped a commanding figure, Sheriff Victor Lane, known throughout Brooksville for his ironclad stance on law and order, yet also for his occasional bouts of principled defiance against internal corruption. Sheriff Lane's eyes immediately swept the scene: the defiant woman in the car, the aggressive posture of Officer Elliot, and the palpable tension that had frozen time itself. Officer Ford, excuse me, officer, what exactly is going on here? Sheriff Lane demanded in a tone that brooked no argument. His voice was measured but carried the weight of experience and a lifetime of serving a community that longed for justice. Officer Elliot, caught in the crosshairs of authority in his own overreach, stammered as he tried to salvage his position. Sheriff, I was simply following procedure. She wouldn't cooperate, and I had to insist. His voice trailed off as Sheriff Lane's steely gaze bore into him. Serena seized the moment to speak, her calm voice resonating with a mix of dignity and righteous indignation. Sheriff Lane, I was on my way home when I was pulled over without cause. I requested a valid reason for this stop, yet instead, I was met with threats and baseless accusations. I have documented every moment." Her words hung in the air, charged with the weight of every injustice she had witnessed in her storied career. Sheriff Lane's expression hardened. "Officer, put your weapon away. This behavior is completely unacceptable. You're suspended pending a full investigation," he ordered firmly, his tone brooking no dissent. Reluctantly, Officer Elliot allowed his grip on the holster to loosen as the sheriff's authority, tempered by a commitment to fairness, took over. As the patrol car's lights faded into the distance, a small crowd of onlookers began to gather, their faces a mixture of concern, curiosity, and outrage. Among them, a familiar figure emerged from the shadows, a local cultural icon known for his smooth talk, laid-back demeanor, and relentless advocacy for social justice. None other than Snoop Dogg, whose presence in Brooksville was as unexpected as it was heartening, stepped forward to offer a few words of levity and resolve. With his trademark calm, he quipped, "Man, even on a night like this, it's like the universe is spinning a crazy record, one with scratches and skips, but still, we gotta dance to its beat. Justice, baby, justice is the only track we can all groove to." The unexpected cameo of Snoop Dogg not only provided a moment of surreal humor but also underscored a truth that resonated deeply within the community: when the fabric of justice is frayed, even the biggest stars step in to remind us that change is possible. Over the following days, the events of that night sent ripples far beyond the quiet streets of Brooksville. Serena Wallace, once known solely for her administrative acumen and steely resolve, found herself at the forefront of a burgeoning movement, a movement aimed at rooting out systemic abuse and restoring trust between law enforcement and the community. With a reputation built on years of battling injustice, Serena became an unwilling yet powerful symbol of hope and accountability. At an impromptu press conference held in a renovated town hall downtown, its walls adorned with vintage posters of classic American movies and local baseball heroes, Serena stood before a throng of reporters, community leaders, and everyday citizens. The room was charged with anticipation, every ear tuned to her measured, impassioned words. "Ladies and gentlemen," Serena began, her voice unwavering despite the emotional toll of recounting her ordeal, "what happened to me last night is not an isolated incident. It is a stark reminder that, despite the progress we have made, the struggle for justice remains an ongoing battle. When authority is wielded without accountability, when prejudice festers within the ranks of those meant to protect us, we all suffer." Her eyes, reflective of both past pain and future resolve, swept across the crowd, igniting a spark of solidarity. The press conference would mark the beginning of a series of reforms within the local police department. Under the watchful eye of Sheriff Victor Lane and with the support of a community that had grown tired of injustice, training sessions on anti-racism and ethical conduct were organized. These sessions, filled with candid discussions, role-playing scenarios, and even humorous references to pop culture icons and hit TV shows, became the unlikely battleground for transforming an institution mired in outdated practices. In one particularly memorable session, a young recruit remarked with a grin, "I guess if we can learn to treat everyone with respect, maybe we can finally beat the system like it's a bad rerun of a 90s sitcom." The remark, which drew laughter from both trainers and trainees alike, was a subtle yet potent reminder that humor can be a tool for healing and change, even in the darkest of times. Yet, as the community rallied around the call for reform, not all were quick to forgive or forget. Officer Elliot Ford, whose actions on that fateful night had been meticulously documented by Serena, was now at the center of an internal investigation. In the sterile confines of a police interrogation room, Elliot wrestled with the consequences of his actions. Memories of his own troubled past of growing up in an environment that prized blind obedience over critical thought surfaced, leaving him torn between a lifetime of ingrained habits and the dawning realization that his conduct had strayed far from the principles he once believed in. Late one night, as rain pattered against the narrow window of his small apartment in a run-down section of the city, Elliot found himself reflecting on a time when his hero had been a local sports star who had once said, "Real strength is shown when you stand up for what's right, even if you stand alone." Those words, echoing from a dusty highlight reel on an old television set, now haunted him. He knew that his future, if he chose to rebuild the trust he had shattered, would be fraught with hardship, but perhaps it was a burden he was finally willing to bear. Meanwhile, Serena's personal journey continued off the public stage. In the quiet moments after the chaos of the incident, she would retreat to the modest apartment she shared with her mother in a historic neighborhood known for its lively street art and jazz clubs. There, over cups of strong coffee and evenings spent listening to soulful blues records, she allowed herself a brief respite to reflect on the costs of leadership. Memories of her own encounters with discrimination, subtle jabs at her intelligence, dismissive glances that belied deep-seated prejudice filled her thoughts. Yet, amid the pain, there was also hope. Hope that by standing firm, by turning personal trials into a catalyst for systemic change, she could help forge a future where every American, regardless of skin color or background, could feel safe and respected. This internal journey was not without its challenges. At times, the weight of responsibility felt almost unbearable. In one particularly introspective moment, Serena recalled a conversation with a wise, aging mentor who had once told her, "Justice isn't just about the laws we enforce, it's about the hearts we touch and the lives we change." That advice had carried her through countless trials, and now, as she faced a system that had betrayed its very promise, it resonated more than ever. As the trial of Officer Elliot Ford unfolded in a packed courtroom, a space filled with passionate citizens, local activists, and a throng of media eager for a verdict, the tension was palpable. Serena took the stand with the measured composure of someone who had seen both the best and worst of humanity. She recounted the events of that fateful evening with clarity and conviction, her testimony painting a vivid picture of a system at a crossroads. Every detail, from the intrusive beam of the flashlight to the chilling moment when the officer's hand drifted toward his weapon, was etched into the collective memory of those present. The prosecution argued that Elliot's actions were not those of a concerned officer but of someone whose authority had been warped by prejudice and unchecked power. His defense, a jumble of legal technicalities and feeble attempts to attribute his behavior to stress, fell flat against the overwhelming evidence: a comprehensive video recording, testimonies from community members, and even the unexpected but poignant interjection by Snoop Dogg during a community rally, where he famously remarked, "When the man in blue forgets his duty to protect, we all gotta step in and make sure justice doesn't take a day off." After days of intense deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict that reverberated far beyond the courtroom's walls. Officer Elliot Ford was found guilty of abuse of power, racial discrimination, and endangering the life of a citizen entrusted with upholding the law. The sentence, a firm yet measured period of incarceration, was not merely punitive but symbolic, a clarion call that the days of unchecked misconduct were over. In the aftermath, as Brooksville slowly began to heal from the scars of that harrowing night, Serena Wallace emerged not as a solitary warrior but as the catalyst for a broader movement. Together with Sheriff Victor Lane, community activists, and even unlikely allies from the entertainment world, she spearheaded initiatives to reform police training and foster dialogue between law enforcement and the communities they served. Town halls, community forums, and even a series of local mini-documentaries chronicling personal stories of injustice and redemption became part of the new social landscape, a landscape where every voice mattered and every injustice was met with collective resolve. Yet, Even as legislative reforms and public apologies began to mend the fractured relationship between the people and those sworn to protect them, Serena knew that the journey toward true justice was far from over. Late one rainy evening, as she sat in a cozy booth at a local diner, a beloved establishment known for its greasy spoon breakfasts and walls adorned with vintage Americana memorabilia, she allowed herself a rare moment of vulnerability. Over a slice of cherry pie and a steaming mug of black coffee, she reflected on the personal toll of leadership. The echoes of that fateful confrontation still resonated in her mind, a reminder that even heroes carry scars. In that quiet diner, amid the soft hum of conversation and the clatter of dishes, Serena's thoughts drifted to her own mentors and the sacrifices made by those who had come before her. She recalled a time when her mother, a resilient woman of unyielding strength, had told her, "Life's trials will test you, but every challenge is an opportunity to shine brighter. Don't let anyone dim your light." Those words, spoken in the tender cadence of a loving parent, buoyed her spirit in moments of despair and reminded her that her struggle was not in vain. Across town, in a small community center repurposed from an old warehouse, grassroots organizers held a vigil to honor the victims of systemic injustice and to celebrate the small victories that paved the way for change. Among the attendees was a young man who had once been inspired by Serena's leadership. He stood up and, with the unfiltered passion of youth, declared, "We're not just fighting against the wrongs of the past, we're building a future where every person can stand tall without fear." His words, echoing through the room adorned with American flags and historical posters, encapsulated the sentiment that had come to define this new era, a spirit of resilience interwoven with humor, hope, and an unshakable belief in the promise of justice. In the months that followed, as reforms were implemented and the community slowly began to rebuild trust, Serena continued to push for progress. She met with lawmakers in marble-clad halls, engaged in spirited debates with activists in bustling cafes, and even shared a few light-hearted moments, jokes about the quirks of modern bureaucracy and humorous anecdotes about the challenges of balancing a high-stakes career with everyday life. One memorable evening at a local comedy club, she joked, "I always thought chasing criminals was hard, but trying to get a decent cup of diner coffee in Brooksville is the real national challenge." The room erupted in laughter, a brief, cathartic release that affirmed the healing power of humor in the face of adversity. Even Officer Elliot Ford, behind bars and facing the consequences of his actions, began to undergo a personal reckoning. In a series of introspective letters written to his estranged family, he confessed, "I now understand that authority is a sacred trust, a trust that I have failed to honor. I regret every moment that I allowed fear and prejudice to override my duty." Though his words came too late to erase the harm inflicted that night, they served as a cautionary tale for a system in desperate need of transformation. As autumn gave way to winter, and the chill in the air was slowly replaced by the promise of spring, Brooksville emerged as a microcosm of the broader American struggle for equality and justice. New community programs were launched, local schools integrated discussions of civil rights into their curricula, and even the local radio station, a relic from a bygone era, aired segments highlighting stories of everyday heroes and the ongoing quest for fairness. In the midst of this change, Serena Wallace remained a steadfast figure. Though the ordeal had left its mark, her resolve was unbroken. She understood that while one night's events could spark a movement, it was the continuous, collective effort of countless individuals, each fighting their own battles, that would ultimately reshape the landscape of justice in America. And so, with a heart both heavy and hopeful, she prepared for the next chapter in her lifelong journey, one that would demand courage, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to truth. Standing once again at the threshold of her home, Serena paused before stepping through the door. The memories of the night, the tense standoff, the shattering confrontation, and the dawning of a new movement mingled with the soft glow of streetlights and the distant hum of life continuing beyond the confines of a single street. In that quiet moment, she silently vowed that no matter the challenges ahead, she would remain a guardian of justice, a voice for the voiceless, and a symbol of hope for all who had ever felt marginalized or oppressed. And as the seasons turned and the community of Brooksville continued its slow, deliberate march toward a fairer future, Serena Wallace's story, infused with courage, tinged with humor, and punctuated by the unmistakable rhythms of American life, remained a timeless testament to the enduring power of resilience and the belief that, even in the darkest of times, justice could prevail. Thank you for joining in this journey, a story of pain, loss, triumph, and the unyielding hope that binds us together. If you found resonance in these words, please like and subscribe to our channel for more narratives that explore the intricacies of life, the scars of injustice, and the beauty of overcoming adversity. Remember, every story matters, and every voice can be the spark that lights the way to a brighter tomorrow.